when a client comes to me and they explain their difficulties, I have to understand the context of their work and what's involved to give me some context for what we're working with. I also use a number of different tools and techniques. So a principal one I use is around psychometric measurements, which actually helps identify people's leadership skills and helps understand their confidence and their control. Particularly one I work with is one around mental toughness, which is about personal resilience, and it just helps give me more of an insight into somebody very quickly. I also find it very useful for people to come to me with stories. As coaches, very often we talk about stories and narrative. So I actually get people to think about problems that they've got and actually tell me a story. And then I actually work with them to, if you like, rewrite that story so the next time they have to go through that situation, they're more prepared. And I find working with a client and actually getting them to practice doing certain things or saying certain things can be very helpful. Because there's a lot of management training these days is done through just assessment, and there's not so much training done, I find, whereas years ago people would go on a training course and you would actually practice it. A lot of the adult training I did some years ago working with adults, we used to develop case studies, and we used to give people roles and responsibilities, and we'd run a case study, and there'd be a basic script, and we'd give each person something to do and something to say and to think about, and then it'd be up to them. And once we've done it, we would then actually sit down and critique it and say, well, okay, how did you think it went? What could you have done differently? And it's the same thing I do with coaching. Once somebody says to me the problem they've got or the situation that they've got with their leadership, or if they've got problems with their team that they're trying to lead, I get them to explain to me what's been going on. And then it is about unpicking it and getting them to understand from their team's point of view, from their senior leader's point of view or their sponsor's view, how different it could be. And I think a crucial thing about a leadership coach is actually helping somebody understand things from somebody else's perspective, because that's something that a lot of people struggle sometimes to do because they're not getting any feedback. And although occasionally people think, oh well, so and so in the organisation is always negative, always got something to say, they might be. However, feedback's feedback, and if you have somebody in your team who has a particular view, it doesn't seem to change, then as a leader you need to deal with it. And I think sometimes leaders struggle to understand how to understand their own team. And good leaders understand their people. So it is all about narrative and understanding. So if you like, partly through my work, I'm re-educating quite often, because a lot of the leaders I work with are mid-career, senior, they're senior posts, but they're sort of mid-career, and they've been through a lot, and all of a sudden something that they've always done isn't working and they don't understand. So it's about understanding people. So as a coach, I help people understand people. And the different generations of people we've got see the world differently. So the 40-year-olds, 40-plus-olds are in a different world than the 30-year-olds and the 20-year-olds. And those just coming out of university see things differently. And it's important to understand from their perspective. And the old adage of learning to walk in somebody else's shoes springs to mind. And that's sometimes an activity we have to run through with leaders to get them to understand things. But in essence, it all boils down to a conversation. And coaching can be as complicated or as simple as you like. And to me, it needs to be quite simple, because people need to be comfortable in talking about how they perceive things and what they wish to do about it. And I think once I've got somebody thinking clearly and rationally about how they see the world, usually the problem pops straight out of their head, or the solution rather pops straight out of their head. But sometimes I do find them saying to people, well, what question are you trying to answer? Quite often the answer is, well, I don't know. Oh, okay. So we need to have a conversation for them to even form their own problem statement. So sometimes it is the fact that the problem comes out of their head first before we can even get to a solution. But it's just fun to me sometimes, just having a conversation and watch somebody sort of discovering all this for themselves.